Hi everyone, I'm John Fenzel, and we're here in Arlington National Cemetery in Section 1, which is right outside of Fort Myer. I'd like to talk to you about the Revolutionary War veterans that are here. Although the American Revolution ended nearly 80 years before this cemetery was established, 11 veterans of that war have been reinterred here at Arlington. Arlington is the only national cemetery to claim veterans buried within its walls from every war in American history. Many of these men who are buried here have been deceased for more than a century when requests were made to allow their burial here at Arlington. 9 of those men are buried in Section 1 right here between Arlington House and the Fort Myer Gate, which is right over here. Pierre L'Enfant and Hugh Auld are buried in Section 2. So let's go visit all 11 of these Revolutionary War veterans buried at Arlington National Cemetery. So James McCubbin Lingan is interred right here in Section 1 behind me on the main road leading to Fort Myer. He was a second lieutenant in the Maryland and Virginia Rifle Regiment. He was captured during the surrender of Fort Washington on November 16th, 1776. He spent 3.5 years imprisoned on the HMS Jersey, which was an infamous British prison ship. The conditions were terrible, the treatment was terrible. Lingan was initially kept in a cell where he couldn't either lie down or stand up. He was approached by a distant cousin, Samuel Hood, and he was offered £10,000 and a commission in the British Army if he agreed to switch sides in the war. Lingan was reported to have replied to him, "I'll rot first." Later in his captivity, Lingan gained a reputation as a staunch defender of prisoners' rights. On one occasion, Lingan defended the body of a recently deceased prisoner from guards who wanted to behead the corpse to make it fit into a small coffin. After the war, he was a founding member of the Society of Cincinnati, a prestigious Revolutionary War veterans organization. He was also an outspoken advocate of the freedom of press. During the War of 1812, he tried to defend a Baltimore anti-war newspaper when its office was attacked by a violent mob, and Lingan was severely beaten, and he later died from those injuries. George Washington Park Custis delivered the eulogy at Lingan's funeral, and although of course Custis's Arlington estate wasn't yet a national cemetery, Lingan was originally laid to rest at a private cemetery in Georgetown. Let's visit the gravesite of James McCubbin Lingan. James' house is remembered with an obelisk-shaped white grave marker that you see here. He was a Virginian. He served as a matros, which was an artillery soldier who ranked below gunner in the 1st Artillery Regiment. He received a brevet brigadier general's rank in the peacetime army after the War of 1812. Now, little is known about William Ward Burrows' Revolutionary War service. He's believed to have served in a South Carolina militia, possibly in a clandestine role. But Burrows is better known as the first Commandant of the Marine Corps after President John Adams established it as an independent service branch in 1798. So we're at William Burrows' gravesite right here, so let me just turn this around. Right behind Burrows is John Follin from Virginia. He's the only Continental Navy sailor at Arlington. He was 17 years old when British sailors took him captive And Follin was held as a prisoner of war for 3 years. Here's John Follin. Born in Belvedere, England, Joseph Carleton served as a paymaster in Pulaski's Legion during 1778 and 1779. The Continental Congress recognized Carleton's administrative talents, selecting him secretary to the Board of Ordnance and paymaster to the Board of War and Ordnance on October 27, 1779. Reorganizing, Congress elected Carleton to Secretary to the Board of War on February 17, 1781, a capacity in which he served through March 24, 1785. William Russell was a very distinguished soldier of the Revolutionary War. He lived from 1735 to 1793. He's one of 2 Revolutionary War veterans with a standard government headstone. He entered the service of his new nation in 1776 and commanded numerous Virginia regiments, leading his units at Brandywine, Germantown, and Monmouth. Russell, along with the rest of his garrison, surrendered to the British at Charleston in 1780. Later exchanged, he rejoined the Continental Army and witnessed the British surrender at Yorktown. Russell County, Virginia, bears his name. Caleb Swan served as a corporal in the 9th Massachusetts Regiment and an ensign in the 3rd and 8th Massachusetts Regiments from 1777 to the end of the war. He suffered the harsh winter at Valley Forge and posted at both White Plains and West Point. Swan must have been a good soldier and enjoyed a military life as he stayed on to serve in Jackson's Continental Regiment after the rest of the Continental Army was disbanded. In 1792, he was named a paymaster in the Army and served until 1808. John Green was born in 1730, and he was a veteran of the American Revolution. He was a colonel in the 10th Virginia Volunteers, and as such fought throughout the Revolution. He died in 1793 and was originally buried in Liberty Hall, Virginia, and he was reinterred again here in Section 1 in the Arlington National Cemetery on April 23rd, 1931. Here, the inscription reads, John Green, Colonel, 10th Virginia Volunteers, Revolutionary War, born and died at Liberty Hall, Culpeper, Virginia, 1730 to 1793, commanded one of the first companies of the Minutemen of Culpeper County, organized and commanded a company in the Continental Line, commended by the Continental Congress, and directed to be presented a sword for meritorious service. Original member of the Society of Cincinnati. Hugh Auld was a lieutenant during the Revolutionary War, a member of the Talbot County Militia of Maryland. He was born in 1745 and died on December 17, 1813. He was first buried in a family plot in Claiborne, Maryland, and was moved here to Section 2 of Arlington National Cemetery on April 11, 1935. Hugh Auld, Maryland, Lieutenant, Talbot County Militia, Revolutionary War, December 7th, 1815. The marker here of his service is on back of the stone. And then Hugh Auld Jr. is also buried here. He served during the War of 1812. And he passed away on November 2nd, 1820. The Aulds were a slave-owning family in Maryland, and they had a connection also to Frederick Douglass and his family. Thomas Meason was born in 1726 in Uniontown, Pennsylvania. Meason served in the Continental Army during the American Revolution and achieved the rank of Brigadier General. He was also an accomplished Pennsylvania lawyer. Brigadier General Thomas Meason died on March 10th, 1813 in Washington, D.C. and was buried in the old Presbyterian Cemetery there. On May 12, 1892, he was reinterred here at Arlington in Section 1. While he isn't the oldest grave here in Arlington, he's the oldest person buried here in terms of date of birth. Pierre L'Enfant, a famous Frenchman who gained particular notoriety during his wartime service, stayed in America after the war and was appointed by President George Washington to design the city plan for Washington, D.C. Yet he achieved little success as a commercial architect, and L'Enfant died penniless in 1825 and was buried at Green Hill Farm in Chilham, Maryland. He didn't receive much recognition for his contribution to the design of the District of Columbia until the Macmillan Commission set about revising the design of the city in the early 20th century. And so in 1909, Congress ordered his remains disinterred. Honored by first line in state at the Capitol Rotunda, L'Enfant's reinterment took place on April 28, 1909, and he now lies at rest right here on the ridge in front of Arlington House. So as we mentioned, between 1892 and 1943, 11 veterans of America's Revolutionary War were moved from their original burial locations and reinterred right here at Arlington. It's one of the best indicators of Arlington's rising status as America's most sacred shrine. And so as Arlington became a more important part of the national consciousness, many people thought it fitting to reinter veterans of our nation's Revolutionary War right here. These requests for reburial underscored Arlington's increasing prominence and place of honor for the American public. So that's a quick summary of how our Revolutionary War veterans came to be interred here at Arlington National Cemetery. I'm John Fenzel, and I thought you'd like to know.